Hey, welcome to Wildman Adventures. This week we're going to recap one of the video interviews we did with Scott Hess. He's one of the 2020 Hall of Fame nominees. Hey, tune in on November 13th and 14th on monstermuseum.org's Facebook and or YouTube channel. We're going to have the nominations and everything from the Hall of Fame. It should be a really exciting show both nights, Friday and Saturday night, and we've got some big announcements and some big surprises that are going to be airing on that. So check it out, and thanks for watching. Okay, here we are with Scott Hess still, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of his crash history. A lot of you YouTubers and monster truck fans have seen that famous footage where Scott's running Hercules, hanging out the window racing Bigfoot, and they both simultaneously crash. Tell us a little bit about that event or what happened there.
Yeah, we were at I had never rolled actually. That was my first rollover, and we were at I think it was a TNT event, and we showed up, and I ended up with Bigfoot in an early round. It wasn't even close to the finals, I don't think, and I was all psyched up. I really wanted to beat him bad. You know, that's when the racing was just coming along, and we were getting some horsepower, and I was determined to really win that race, and I took off, and we hit the first set of cars. I believe there was 2 sets of cars or a dirt hill, and we actually blew a rear hydraulic line, and the rear tires turned on me at a pretty good speed. And we barrel rolled. There was a concrete barrier, and we landed on that barrier.
And there was like a big electric box or something too, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And you landed on it.
And a photographer. There was a photographer taking pictures along that wall, and he laid down. The truck actually laid on that wall, and he was laying under that. The wall saved him. Those concrete temporary barriers. He crawled out under the truck. It was pretty scary for him, and I had no idea that Bigfoot had crashed as well. And we got out, and somebody pointed over, and I was, wow, that was weird. But it was sure all over the newsreels, and everybody used it for their highlights for a long time. That was a pretty big deal.
And then, I mean, do you have any idea how many times you rolled over and crashed, or do you not ever really? Because I know for a while, one of the jokes, you know, I grew up in a body shop, a paint shop that my dad had, and we used the same lettering and pinstripe guy, old Kevin Craig, KC, and I remember sometimes he couldn't come to our shop because I'm up there at Hess's shop re-lettering the truck because he put a new body on it again this week. And it's like, well, didn't you just do that last week? Yeah, I've done it the last 2 weeks. So sometimes the paint wasn't even dry when you were crashing the next weekend, but that was that competitive spirit. Now, tell us a little bit about the big deal when you and Taurus tangled up, because you actually landed on top of Taurus. Now you didn't crash. No. You kind of used him as your down ramp, but that was a pretty controversial deal that everybody was upset in the industry over, and it just you get 2 bullheaded guys that want to win, and that's the kind of stuff that happens. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I kind of inherited that Taurus barefoot rivalry. You know, I never had anything against Jack or Jackie. We got along great, but with Fred and Jack's history, you know, there was no one wanting to lose anytime those 2 trucks lined up. We showed up at a show, and Jack Sr. was there with the older truck, and we won pretty easily the first night. And the next day, unbeknownst to me, he had Jackie drive all night with their new race truck because he wanted to run me and beat me on the Saturday night show. So they drove all day, all night to get there, and they pulled in just not long before the show, got her tired up, and so all they talked about all day is they were going to kick my ass that night. So I wasn't one to back down too easily. We lined up, it got down to him and I in the finals. I was in the right lane, and it was an outdoor. We were at a racetrack on the infield, so we had a lot of area, and there was 2 sets of cars with way too much distance between the cars, and I never lifted ever. And all I know is when I landed, I was surprised at how soft it was, and I had no idea. Well, we had both kind of drifted, and my left rear tire went down, right down his right windshield post. And you know, that Taurus truck had a really sloped hood, so it was just a beautiful landing ramp. But I had no idea, you know, and after I went up and come around, he's sitting there with the front end ripped off of it, and they were pretty pissed at me. That didn't go over very well that night. And they're trying to say they won. I said, how'd you win if my left rear tire was on your right front? So yeah, it was a pretty big deal to beat, because that truck, you know, as you all see it, if you see it out there at the museum, Mike Voders restored that truck. But that truck was really something as far as ahead of its time back then.
Yeah, that was a huge undertaking. Now, there's another crash that I always thought was neat, that you somehow nosed into a big hill, and I think it was up in Canada, and you actually ran up that hill with the front wheels and the rear wheels past the hill, and you landed on your roof on the other side, and the truck came back around on its wheels somehow with no body or anything, and you kept racing until they shut you off with the remote control. Do you remember much about that one?
Oh, we were up in Montreal at the Olympic Stadium, and it was a big event. Samson, Bigfoot, there was a lot of nice trucks there, and that's when I just totally changed to fiberglass. So the whole truck was glass, and we had way too much leaf spring under it. It was the rear end was bouncing too bad. Well, we had hit a dirt hill, and our first set of cars, and the rear end came up, and I went into a dirt mound, and I was going to roll over forward, so I had to hit the gas. And what it did, I rolled in the air, but I ended back up on my wheels somehow. I don't even know where I ended up. And it was a track where you ran two lanes, and you switched at the back and came back across. Well, however I landed, I was in the other lane facing the other way. I was way ahead of whoever I was racing. I thought I won, but they finally shut me off, and there was no body left on the truck, and it was quite an event. But it was like I say, it was up at a big stadium where 50, 60,000 people, and we sold a ton of t-shirts that night.
Yeah, I bet so. Yeah, because nobody was expecting that kind of stuff back in those days.
Right.
So now, tell us, you know, after you got out of the sport, what did you do? What has your life kind of been since you got out of the monster truck world?
Well, like I said, I grew up in the trash business, and we had sold the company. And that's when I kind of went full-time monster truck there in the late 80s and into the early 90s. And my wife and I started a family, and we'd had my son. He was born in 90. And I just was having a tough time of raising kids on the road. I had a lot of friends that were doing that, and the monster truck industry was really progressing. You couldn't build a new truck quick enough. Time you get one built, it was already obsolete.
Yeah.
And I just seen where it was headed, and the expense it was going to take. And the people we had sold the trash company to, it was a bigger company, they had made me a tremendous offer to come back to work for them. And we just made the decision to just pack it in for a while, and that was right when Fred got the Dodge deal, and he really wanted me to run one of the new Dodge trucks, and Aaron was begging me not to quit, and I wanted to raise a family. And you know, the monster truck life is so tough because you have no other life, because you work every weekend, and you can't go do things that most people do on the weekends with your friends and, you know, other activities. And we wanted to get down to somewhat of a normal life and raise our kids and be home.
Mm-hmm. And then after the trash business, you started a successful house building company.
Yeah, we started building homes and custom homes from the ground up, and we've done that. Started that in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and just sold that company here about 3 years ago, and totally retired. Yeah,
now you're just having fun playing with his motorcycles and all of his other hobbies that he's got.
Yeah.
So, well, it's been great visiting with you, and hopefully these fans got a little chance to learn a little bit of history about you. And stay tuned for other episodes, and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks a lot.
With Scott Hess out of Auburn, Indiana. had the quickest time in the first round at 6.56. Bigfoot was just a tick behind at 6.60 as the crowd erupts. It's Ford against Jimmy. Here they are. Look at the air of those trucks. Barefoot in trouble. All right, here it is. Their times through the first round. Very close. Here they are. Here they are. And look at Andy Grass and Bigfoot. Andy Grass is in trouble. Andy Grass in trouble. Play. They can always check an official's decision. Well, right now, we're looking at the replay. The officials are trying to determine who will go into the championship round. Will it be Bigfoot or Barefoot? Bigfoot or Barefoot? Barefoot is the winner. Barefoot, the Chevrolet, takes the victory.